The issue of pill testing continues to be in the news. Of course, there's been a coronial inquest in New South Wales into a number of dance festival deaths. There's been a trial of pill testing in the ACT. And now the Greens in Victoria are pushing for the government to introduce a permanent pill testing facility, a mobile facility that would go around to dance events and the like. I'm joined by Dr Monica Barrett, who's with the Australian National Drug and Alcohol Research Centre in Melbourne. Thanks for joining us, Dr Barrett. Tell us about this proposal. They're jumping the gun, aren't they? Already people are grappling with this issue, and yet they're saying we should have a permanent pill testing facility.
Thanks for having me on the show. In terms of having a pill testing facility like this, I think it's a good move that they've introduced this bill, and really it's opening up the discussion. A couple of years ago, in fact I think it was last year in Victoria, there was an inquiry into drug law reform, and one of the recommendations of that inquiry was to have some kind of permanent fixed site testing facility that people could use. So this is certainly in keeping with those recommendations. The
idea with this, though, as I understand it, would be to have a mobile facility that would turn up at various events.
That's right. So the idea is if you're going to buy the equipment and have all the people trained, then why not also be able to use it as a mobile facility? So to be able to have a fixed site facility that can also be used as a mobile facility makes it more available to a wider group of people who might benefit.
How many young people each year are dying from pills?
Look, as you know, in New South Wales, there's currently an ongoing inquest, and there were 5 deaths in a short space of time last year. It can be quite hard to know exactly how many people died specifically due to taking these drugs over time. Certainly in media reports, it's very tragic, as what happened to me when I met some of the families of the deceased in Sydney last month. But when we focus on the deaths, we also have to think about all of the near misses, all hospitalisations, all the ambulance call-outs and the other kinds of harms that are also attributable to this sort of stuff. So something that a pill testing service can do is provide an outlet for someone to talk with a counsellor, usually a health professional, about their drug use. And these are typically people that don't otherwise come to the attention of health professionals. So it can provide them with some advice, potentially changing their behaviour.
There's 2 aspects of the actual testing that concern me. I'd love to get your straightforward answers on these.
Sure.
First up, we know that the testing can detect if there are sort of toxic materials in a pill. Is it the case, though, that they will always detect such anomalies? In other words, is the testing foolproof?
Well, it depends on what technology is utilised in the testing services. So the research that I've done in 2017, we had a look across the world and we profiled nearly 30 different drug checking services or pill testing services in 20 different countries. Some of them are really well funded, so they have better equipment. And in those cases, they are able to detect drugs that are in very low concentrations but are particularly potent. And they're also able to look at the purity, so they might be able to then say, you know, this particular powder is 80% pure, or this pill has 200 milligrams of MDMA.
So you're saying the testing can be foolproof? So you're saying the testing can be foolproof?
The only issue where I think some of these tests have trouble with is if there was an unknown compound that was unknown to all of chemistry. And this is a possibility, but what many of the tests can do is say, well, this compound looks a lot like these other ones, and so we would then say to the person, if you're running a testing facility, you know, we're fairly sure there's an unknown substance here. Now, even that information, even if you can't identify it, it can help someone to say, well, I'm not going to take that. If it's got an unknown substance in it that not even the chemist can identify, then I don't want to take that pill. OK, so once you've cleared a pill, and presumably there's a variety here, there's speed or ecstasy or MDMA, whatever the drugs are, is the taking of any quantities of these drugs safe? No, absolutely not. And none of these services ever clear, as you say, a drug to take. One of the messages they send by having the service in front of someone who was going to take drugs anyway, we should understand that, they've come there, they're going to take drugs anyway, and a health professional can tell them, did you know that actually MDMA, the key ingredient of ecstasy, even in lower doses, can produce a myriad of harms. It can even kill you. And many people don't realise that. So there's a lot of myth-busting that can help when you're running these sorts of services.
So isn't this the fundamental problem with pill testing? It can't completely protect anyone from harm, and therefore it's giving. But in being there, it's giving an impression that taking these drugs is okay and can be safer than it otherwise would be.
Well, I think it's reasonable to say that with better information, people can make safer choices, but that is not the same thing as no risk. That is not the same thing as reducing the risk to zero. And we know the only way to reduce the risk to zero is to not take the substance. That message is also something that people say in these testing services.
Thanks very much for joining us, Dr. Monica Barrett. I appreciate that.